Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another SEJ Marketing Think Tanks webinar. I was going to say something different, I guess. Today we're going to discuss a really cool topic. We're going to talk about Google Analytics, and we're going to talk about it for web publishers specifically. This is something that, I don't know about everybody else on the call, but this is something I personally have constantly battled with analytics, because I really want the information from analytics, but I don't really want to go much beyond the basics, right? All I look for is, how many page views I got and how many, visits I got. But today we're going to be talking with Slobodan Manic, and I'm Brent Satoris, if you don't know. And Slobodan is the CTO of Search Engine Journal, and he's going to talk about some of the low-hanging fruit that you can get from analytics that, really you can probably walk away from today and start setting up and seeing benefit from. So I'm going to let Slobodan kind of jump in, give a little introduction about himself, and then I'm going to go through some housekeeping things, and then we'll get started. So go ahead, Slobodan, if you want to give us a little introduction.
Thank you, Brent, and welcome everyone to another SEJ Marketing Think Tank webinar. As Brent said, my name is Slobodan Manic. I'm CTO of Alpha Brand Media, which is parent company of Search Engine Journal. I am a Google Analytics certified individual, and I am a WordPress developer with 7 years of experience, WordPress theme and plugin author, and also core contributor for WordPress versions 4.0 and 4.1. So the things that we'll talk about are Google Analytics tips that web publishers can apply to their online content strategy. But first, Brent, I'm going to let you talk about the housekeeping issue.
Perfect. So housekeeping stuff, really basic, really quick, very simple. Throughout the entire webinar, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything that is appropriate to say, the webinar has a question box I believe it's the bottom left on all people's screen, and you can ask questions in there. We're also going to be using Twitter to carry the discussion, and we're going to be using the hashtag SEJ ThinkTank. It's one word, and so you can ask questions through the webinar, or you can ask questions on Twitter using the hashtag throughout the entire webinar. During the presentation, we're going to stop at a couple points and we're going to ask some polls. The idea is essentially we want to find out from you, the audience, what do you think about this? What are you interested in doing? What would you use with the information that we're talking about? So we'll have a couple polls, give you about 30 seconds on each poll just to answer real quick. We're not going to spend forever on it. And then we'll share some of the answers, and we'll let you guys see some of the polls throughout that. During the entire presentation, there's going to be a couple links that will be in the presentation, some resources that might get brought up, some discussion points that might have, links that we want to share. We'll be dropping those links into the chat window throughout the presentation. But if we happen to forget something, or you have a question about something, by all means, please ask, and we'll make sure we get you the resource. The entire webinar, all of the Q&A, all the resources, everything else is going to be recorded, and it's going to be transcribed, and it's going to be put into a blog post on Search Engine Journal. It typically takes a couple days, but it will come out. It will be there for you to review, to recap, and to share, or do whatever you want to do with. So without further ado, let's jump into the presentation and learn about analytics. Slobodan, go ahead.
Thanks again, Brent. And like Brent said earlier, we're just going to focus on a few quick and easy tips that you can apply to your content strategy that can help you and boost your online efforts. Talking about everything Google Analytics offers in a webinar like this with limited time is practically impossible. So instead of doing that, I decided to focus on these three things: custom dimensions, segments, and goals. And before I dive into custom dimensions, which are the first thing that we'll talk about, I want to take a look at just a sample report from Google Analytics and what it's made of. So this is a report that shows countries that users are coming from, and on the left you can see the dimension in this report, which is country, and dimensions are something that is used to describe your users or their sessions or actions they take when they visit your website. So they're attributes. On the right you see a bunch of metrics, and metrics are quantitative measurements and that describe user sessions and user actions on your website, and they are numbers. So now let me just jump into custom dimensions. Google Analytics gives you a lot of dimensions out of the box. For example, like you saw in the previous slide, one dimension that you get is country, where user is coming from. Then there's a page title, page path, or the type of device user is using to access your website, and a whole lot of different things that apply to virtually everyone. But since your audience and your content are unique only to your website and to you, there's a lot of custom things to it. And just like this building here, which is in Prague, in Czech Republic, like this building, it has its own custom dimensions. Your website and your user base will have a bunch of custom dimensions that you will want to track in order to be able to better understand what's going on in your website. And this will be, like I said, this will be completely unique to you, your website, and your user base and your content. And some of the ideas of custom dimensions, some of the examples that you can track, and I'm just going to go through a few of those and tell you how we use them at SEJ and what we get out of them. Some of the things that you can track, especially if you're a web publisher with a bunch of posts and you know, a lot of categories in your blog, one thing that you can and should be tracking as a custom dimension is article category. We do that at SEJ to understand which category users engage with better, so which category has a higher or lower bounce rate or higher or lower average time on page, and we use that as a very powerful content strategy tool because it is a clear way for us to know what our audience wants to read about more and what they're not so interested in reading. Another thing that we do since SEJ is a multi-author guest contributor blog with a few hundreds of active guest contributors is author. We send author to Google Analytics as a custom dimension, and then in a report, just like the one with countries that you saw earlier, we're able to see authors. And then, for example, we can tell which author has highest percentage of returning users, which is a very important metric to us because, you know, as a web publisher, you want people not to just read one of your articles once and never come back. You want as many people as possible to return and keep returning. So we know which authors are the ones that drive returning visitors or drive higher time on page or more pages in a session, and that gives us an idea of which authors we want to be publishing more of on our site, and also not which author we don't want to be publishing, but which authors might need some help from our editorial team in getting better. Another interesting thing that we do at SEJ is we use article length as a custom dimension. We track that, and how we do it is we have several groups of posts. We have short, medium, long, and very long posts. And what very long being posts that are longer than 2,000 words. And what we learned by checking that is that the longer the post, higher the bounce rate. You know, that could be for many reasons, but it just gives us an idea of that there's something that needs to be changed with these posts, with these very long posts. Maybe people get tired after reading such a long post and they just stop doing, they just abandon the site and don't, they're too tired to read another article. So maybe we should break down those posts, use more images, use more headings, more lists inside them. Or one thing that we are experimenting with, we should separate those long posts into a few either sub-pages or maybe series. So
or you can also find out, like, just by adding the additional different custom dimensions as well, right? You can find out if there's a combination of those, right? Like which topic are the long post work.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Didn't we do a study on Search Engine Journal like last year where we actually did the testing on article length, and I think that's where we first started doing the tracking on article length, and we found that the longer form content actually got more social shares at the time.
Yes, that is another study that we did. It's interesting. The longer the post is, it does get more reads, it gets more page views, it gets more shares, but the bounce rate is higher. So it's too exhausting for. And again, this applies to our specific audience. To understand your audience, you're going to have to figure out which custom dimensions are the ones that you want to track, and then by tracking them, you will get a better idea of changes that you need to make to increase user engagement on your website.
And you can track anything? You can track anything that you have on your site? Is it like
anything you can think of that's specific to your users? For example, you can track if your users are logged in or not, and how logged in users interact and what their bounce rate is, and how long they stay on your site compared to non-logged in users, or if you have different user roles like subscriber or contributor or author, how each one of those interacts with your website. So it really depends on your website, your needs, because there's no user base, there's no two user bases that are identical. Every user base is completely unique, and every website with its traffic is completely unique. So you need to sit down and decide what you want to track. And I'm just going to give you some pointers when you're creating custom dimensions. Number one requirement is that you must use universal analytics, which I believe Most people do by now, and if you don't, when you log in, you will be prompted to convert your account to Universal Analytics, and it's a very easy process. You just click a button and it's done automatically in the background. Second thing that's very important, you must create a custom dimension before you can start tracking it. By that I mean if you create a post-category custom dimension today, you will not be able to apply it to data from 6 months ago. So it will start tracking that data today, and you will only be able to see it in future reports. And finally, you can only define 20 custom dimensions per view in free Google Analytics accounts. From my experience, and based on how we do it at SEJ, that's more than enough. We have 11 or 12 right now, and I think 20 is more than enough. Once you create one, you cannot delete it, but you can change its name and use it for something else, although the old data will still remain there. So that brings us to our first poll. Brent?
Awesome. So the first poll, very, very, very easy one for you. Do you use custom dimensions? Yes, no, but I plan to now, or no? Very simple question. Do you use custom dimensions? And if we can go ahead and we'll give it, like I said, a couple more seconds. Looks like we're getting quite a few votes in now. Like I said, I'll give about another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. All right, I'm closing it out. Awesome. And so as you can see, you know, there's a group of people who are, there's a group of people who are not, but there's a lot of people who are about to. So that's good. It's good to see that we're influencing you already.
Yeah, only 20 people are not interested at all, which is really good.
Now, one thing really quick before we move on, like, you know, without going into it, obviously, I mean, we're looking to kind of discuss these, but this is, the custom dimensions and many of these things actually take a slight development knowledge, right? I mean, you know, in order to implement these, you can't just go in and put in the name of, like, I want to track people that are tall, you know. I mean, you have to be able to code a little bit, right?
That is correct. You can either code it yourself, or, for example, if you're using WordPress and if you use some of the most popular WordPress analytics plugins. I know Yoast's analytics plugin has a paid extension, to be fair, but has a paid extension for custom dimensions. So you can use that paid extension, and you don't need to be a coder at all. You can just set up for custom dimension 1. I want to do categories. It's a 2-step process. You need to create the dimension in Google Analytics in your Google Analytics account, and then you just need to start tracking it by pushing that to your tracking.
We'll make sure we get that link for that
Absolutely.
plugin in there as well. So okay, let's go ahead and
go on.
go
If you have any questions about tracking custom dimensions, you can use the Twitter hashtag. I'll respond to you guys later.
Perfect.
So next thing I want to talk about are segments, and in my opinion, this is probably the easiest thing you can apply, because unlike custom dimensions, you don't need to be a coder to use segments. It won't help at all. Like, there's no need to do any code, and it helps you understand your users and your how they interact with your website in a much better way than anything else. But before I start talking about segments in Google Analytics, I want you to take a look at this image right here, and this is from a World of Facial Averages project. What they did here is they analyzed tons and tons of photos that people sent in, female and male photos, and they created this visual blend, as they called it. And what you see on the left is the average female by appearance, and on the right is the average male. So does this mean that these two people actually exist? No, there's a lot of people like them. You know, they have similar eyes, similar noses, or one of those things, or two or more of those, or facial features. But these two, they're not real people. And in a similar way, when you look at a report in Google Analytics, and this is Audience Report Overview, which is one of the most basic and most simple reports. This is with no segments applied. When you look at bounce rate as a metric, I can tell that bounce rate for this website I'll be using as an example is 54.96%. Does that mean that next user who lands on my website is 54.96% likely to leave? Yes, I guess in a way that's true, but also, does that mean that I cannot tell more precisely, you know, how likely a user is to leave based on where the user is coming from, whether they're coming from social, what kind of country they're coming from, or, you know, anything else I can think of? Absolutely not. Using all those, and those are actually segments, because segments in Google Analytics are just subsets of your data. If I use segments, I will be able to tell in a more precise way what's going to happen. So using bounce rate, I went to next report, which is also audience report, but it's broken down by country. And you can see in the last column, you can see the bounce rate for the entire website on top. It's 54.96. And then one country that really stood out, and I'm going to use as an example here, is Spain, which has bounce rate of 78.26%, which is so much higher than average, and not just average, but higher than any other country on the list. So that gives me an idea that maybe I should create a segment of people that are visiting from Spain and then go through other reports with that segment applied and see how people and what people do on my website and why they're leaving, why they don't stay much longer. So to create a segment, and like I said, no coding required at all. To create a segment, you need to click this Add Segment button on top of any report. And the thing you see on the left that says All Sessions and then 100% below it, that's actually a segment of your users, of their sessions to be precise. The thing that's specific about this segment is that it's applied to all of your data. So it's a segment that shows you all of your data. If you want to apply a segment that shows subset of your data, you need to click this Add Segment button. And when you do, you'll see this interface. And there's 3 types of segments you can apply. System segments, which are the built-in segments in Google Analytics, which are the segments you get out of the box when you create a Google Analytics account. For example, mobile traffic or organic traffic, which is people coming from organic search to your website. And then when you apply that segment, you'll see how only those people interact with your pages, and when they leave, which pages they leave through, where they land, and so on and so on. And finally, you can click this red New Segment button on top, and you can create your own custom segment. And again, there's no coding required to do that. There's an interface, which is fairly simple to use, and I use that to create a segment of people that are visiting from Spain, since I wanted to explore why Spain has such a high bounce rate in my website. And since I'm looking at bounce rate, I went to Exit Pages report, and I wanted to see where people from Spain exit my website. So what you see in the table, you see top 4 pages with number of exits, and you can see that for blog page, percentage of people from Spain that leave through blog page is significantly higher than percentage of all people that leave for blog page. So for Spain, that percentage is 38.84, and overall for website, for all sessions, it's just below 3%. That tells me that there's something really, really wrong with this page and Spanish audience. And since this website is not about something that insults Spanish people, this blog is not about that. It's a blog about WordPress plugins. There's something else that's wrong, and I just happened to run into a study that says that out of all European Union countries, Spain is actually the one with the lowest percentage of people that are able to hold conversation in English. So that tells me that maybe since this blog is all in English, people from Spain are not being bothered by trying to translate the blog post and read full blog post. They don't lead through How It Works page, which is a simple page, or pricing, which is full of numbers, or homepage, which is also a simple page. But when they see a lot of text in English, maybe they say, this is not worth it. Let me just leave this site. And this gives me an idea of how I can reduce bounce rate for people who are visiting from Spain.
I have a quick question. So can you set up a segment for referral so we could find out what actual, where this is coming from? Because it might be interesting to say maybe all of Spain's traffic's coming through some kind of bad link, right, or a spam link that somebody's included me in, and so I don't even have to worry about it because it's all junk traffic to begin with.
Absolutely,
right?
You can combine many conditions when creating segments. You can do that. But here, as an example, because this number really stood out, I just wanted to show you this.
Sure.
This tells me that I should either translate some of the blog posts to Spanish if that audience is valuable to me, or try to do something else, like give them an option to go to another page, have a call to action that gets them to another page of the website. And just looking back at segments and some of the stuff that we talked about today, in my opinion, segments are extremely helpful in understanding your audience, and you should start applying them to your reports today. There's no excuse not to do it because that's how helpful they are. A segment can be applied, or many segments can be applied to all of your Google Analytics reports, and once you apply a segment to a report, it will stay there until you leave Google Analytics. So if you apply it to one report, then click and take a look at another report, the segment will still be there. And so then you can apply. Yep.
Just before, I have a comment before you go to the poll real quick.
Okay, and you can apply up to 4 segments to a report. Once you have 4 applied, you will need to remove one and then apply another one if you want to do that. And you can have up to 1,000 segments per a free Google Analytics account, which is, again, more than enough.
And one of the things when we were going through this, me and you were talking about this earlier, one of the things I thought was interesting is you can actually remove that all sessions segment.
Yes, absolutely. That's just a segment, just like any other segment. You can remove it, and you can have 4 segments that show you subsets of your data. So if you want to have referral, organic, paid traffic, and direct traffic, you can have those 4 segments and just compare them without seeing the
I wanted to toss in one question that popped up just because I think it's relevant to ask it right now, and it's from Nancy Singh. I'm guessing I'm saying that correctly. It seems like it'd be correct. Will the segment change all the data on my analytics account, or is it used just to check and I can change it later?
Nancy, don't be worried about this. Segments are only applied to what you see on the screen. So what would change is applying filters, but that is a completely different thing. You cannot apply it from a report. You need to go to admin section of Google Analytics and then do it. Segments are just a tool that helps you understand the reports better. Once you remove a segment, it's going back to normal.
So it's almost just like a view.
Yeah, it's basically a filter for what you see on the screen.
Perfect, perfect. Cool. So I think we're going on to our next poll, right? Poll number 2. Which segment, let me toss that up, hold on real quick. Poll number 2, launch poll. Which segment would be most helpful to you in understanding your audience? So we want to get an idea on what you think would be most beneficial to you. The options are mobile traffic, social traffic, or returning users. Again, which segment do you think would be most helpful to understanding your personal audience? Mobile traffic, social traffic, or returning users? Again, I'm going to give the poll, just a little bit of time, maybe another 10 seconds or so. We've got about 60% of the people voted. Some people might be thinking, tough choice, mobile, social, both of those are so important. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it out now and share with you some of the results. So a lot of people cared about return users more than anything else, followed by social traffic and mobile traffic. I personally find it interesting because for me, mobiles are the most important thing for me right now. I want to know who's coming from mobile and what I need to do with my mobile section. So I thought that was quite interesting personally, but a lot of people are interested in return users, so good data there.
I just want to chime in and say that I actually agree with our audience. For web publishers, number of returning users, that's really your strength. That's what drives your website. So I'd be most interested as an owner of a large blog in how many returning users I have and what the percentage of returning user is and how I can make it a lot bigger than it is.
Absolutely.
So, getting to next thing I want to talk about, and that's goals. And goals in Google Analytics are very similar to goals in real life in sense that in order to track success or conversions of your goals, you need to define what your goals are. So if you have some business goals, if you want to have some business goals, you need to define what they are before you are able to say if you were successful at them or not. Same thing in Google Analytics. You need to create a goal in Google Analytics before you can start actually tracking conversions for that goal. So when you are creating a goal in Analytics, and again, this doesn't require coding. This is something you do from Google Analytics web interface. There's 4 types of goals that you can create, and any goal you can think of, or practically any goal you can think of, will fit into one of these 4 types. And those 4 types are destination goals, duration goals, pages per session goals, and event goals. And I'm going to look at each 4 one by one and explain how each one works. So destination goals. A destination goal is triggered and counted as a conversion, and conversion is just a successful goal, basically. It's triggered when a user visits a certain page on your website or multiple pages in specified order. So since we're talking to web publishers today, and these are Google Analytics tips for web publishers, I will use an example that's relevant to web publishers. Let's say you have a subscribe to our newsletter page as your first page in this goal funnel. So you want people to land on that page, fill a form, and then they get an email which asks them to click a link to confirm subscription. And when they click that link, they go to thank you for subscribing to our newsletter page. So, if they hit these 2 pages, one after another, that means that they not only submitted the data, but they also confirmed, and they're a confirmed subscriber on your newsletter. So by tracking this, this is basically a goal conversion when a user goes to first page and then second page. Second type of goals are a bit more simple to set up, and they're just duration goals. And these are about how long a user's session or a visit to your website is. So a goal will be counted as a conversion, a duration goal will be counted as a conversion if a user spends more than the time you specify on your website in a single session. So let's say you want a session to last longer than 5 minutes, and every time a user has a session that's longer than 5 minutes, that's a goal conversion. And this is a very, very interesting goal type for web publishers as well, because you don't want people to just land on your website, leave without doing anything else. You want them to stick around, read a little bit, and just spend some time on your website. Third one, which is very similar to duration goals. The only difference is that you're not tracking the time, you're tracking the number of pages user visits in a session. So it doesn't matter which pages those are, as long as the number is met. So let's say you set a goal of more than 3 pages per session. Every time a user visits 4 or more pages in a session, that is a goal conversion. So it can be any pages of your website. And finally, event goals, which are counted as conversions every time a user completes a predefined action or several actions that you define in specified order. So this is similar to destination goals, but instead of tracking user visiting certain URLs, it's actually tracking user performing certain actions. So for example, if you have this sidebar banner in every page of your website which says check out our newsletter, and then when a user clicks that banner, doesn't matter on which page they are, but when they click that banner, they're taken to subscribe page, and then they submit that form. This is another action, this is the second action, and when they complete those 2 actions in that order, that is counted as a goal conversion.
Couldn't you also use like an event goal, like in some cases on the site, like if we're trying to send somebody for like an affiliate conversion, right? I want to see how many people are going through, but I can't get a cookie on the landing page, or I can't get my code on the landing page because it exists off my site. Could you use event goals in that place to actually be able to track almost a conversion in a sense? I know you can't get the conversion because you can't find what they do on the other, but if you were just interested in finding out how many people and what type of people were actually going off the page on that offer, you could use an event goal for that?
Absolutely. In this case, the event would be link click. So you can track that as an event, and every time that event or that action is performed, that is counted as a conversion. Another one of the event goals that we use at SEJ, since with such a large website with so many posts and such a huge audience, comments are very valuable, and I'm sure they're valuable to every web publisher. One of the events that we track and the event goals that we track are leave a comment goal. So that way we can track how many people leave a comment, who those people are, do more people that come from social leave a comment compared to organic search, and so on and so on. And one final thing I want to talk about that has to do with goals is using goals in combination with segments, which is just very, very, very powerful, and it can help you understand your audience in a completely different way. So as I said, there's many built-in segments in Google Analytics, and 3 of those have to do with goals. So the first one is called converters, and you can find it when you create a segment, which I described how you can do in previous slides. So this segment shows you subsets of your users that have converted on a goal, and this is any goal. Like if you have 4 or 5 goals, this is converted on any goal. You can create a custom segment that is similar to this that will track conversions on a specific goal. Second segment I want to talk about is non-converters, which is the exact opposite of people who have converted on a goal. So why these 2 segments are important? You can use them to understand what converters do on your website before they convert on a goal versus what non-converters do, and then you can try to push non-converters into doing the same thing, and that will probably help increase your goal.
And the difference between having these as segments versus just running your conversion report is just the ability to be able to see it in the reports,
the difference
correct?
is if you run a report on conversions, you can just see the overall number of conversions and how percentages or how many people who convert versus how many people don't convert. But if you apply a segment, you will be able to see this segment in every single report.
So anybody who's doing goals that are like that should you think, in your opinion, should absolutely have a segment set up for it then?
It takes less than a minute to do it, so absolutely yes, and it is very, very helpful. And then one final segment I want to talk about is sessions with conversions. So the first two segments I mentioned here, converters and non-converters, are subsets of your users. And the third one is subset of your sessions, and isolates only the sessions in which a conversion has happened. So if you have a goal like leave a comment, which is what we do at SEJ, that can occur many times for a single user, there's going to be multiple sessions when they leave a comment. So this is different. This is not a user who left a comment once or whenever once or more, actually. For first two goals, when you track sessions, you track all the sessions in which a user left a comment, and that gives you a chance to see which pages people read before they leave a comment, or where they come from, before they leave a comment, and it just helps you understand how your audience interacts with your content in a great way. So just a look back at goals. My advice is to always plan ahead before you set up your goals. And by that I mean don't just randomly add a goal here and there. Just take a piece of paper or a document and write down all the goals that are relevant to your business and to your website, and then figure out which ones you want to track. Just like custom dimensions, a goal must be defined in Google Analytics before data for it or conversions can be tracked. So if you create a goal today, you will not be able to see how many people converted 6 months ago. You will be able to see data in your future reports. And you can also define only 20 goals per view in free Google Analytics accounts, but that, again, is more than enough.
Why can you not go backwards with goals? I mean, is there not a way, is there any tools or third-party tools that are able to calculate, like, people's sessions that went to two different domains,
No. That's how it works, yep. It's simply, it's tracked once it's created.
Perfect.
Sessions are not marked as conversions unless that goal exists.
Gotcha.
And let's go to our third poll.
All right, third and final poll. What is the most important goal you are tracking or should be tracking in Google Analytics? Newsletter signups, ebook downloads, pages or minutes per session, or an item purchase? Again, what is the most important goal that you are tracking today or that you should be tracking in Google Analytics? Newsletter signups, ebook downloads, pages or minutes per session, and item purchase. All right, again, I'll give just a couple more seconds. We don't want to spend forever on polls. I know there's a lot of questions that I still need to get to. Don't worry, I see them all in there. I'll get to them. We'll get you some answers here in a second. We have a good bit of time, actually. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now, and I'll share with you the results. Pages and minutes per session, which doesn't surprise me at all, especially since, I think we probably have a diverse crowd who some don't even have ebooks and some don't even have item purchases. So I'm definitely interested to see how many people are actually tracking newsletter signups. That's pretty interesting, though. What do you think, Slob?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And for those that responded with pages or minutes per session, those are actually the easiest goals to set up in Google Analytics. So my advice, do it today. If you run into some problems, hit me on Twitter, use the SEJ ThinkTank hashtag, and I will help you with it. But there's no excuse for you not to do it because it is that simple to set up. So yep.
I was just going to say we have a ton of questions here. Just want to, before we jump into, oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
I just want to summarize, before we get to questions.
Jump in and end you before you're done, right?
Yeah, don't do that. I just want to summarize the things that we talked about and what you should be doing in Google Analytics to get some nice, quick, and easy wins. You should be using custom dimensions to describe your content to Google Analytics better than you can understand it out of the box. You should be using segments to better understand your users and what they're doing when they visit your website by looking at subsets of your users and their visits. And you should be tracking goal conversions because that is the only way for you to be certain if your website fulfills its target objectives.
And you know
Back
what
to
we
you,
should
Brent.
create? We should create like a little tool, right? That you can say what is it what kind of site do I have? What are my goals? And have it like walk through and spit out, here's my 5, you know, goal recommendations for you. That would be a cool little tool because I'm
It
like.
would be. I agree. I agree. It would be very useful.
So just, we're going to go into Q&A. I really appreciate the presentation, Slobodan. I mean, again, I think that these are the areas that all of us kind of know we need to go do, and it's a good reminder to kind of say, look, get off your ass and go do it. And I even wrote down a couple notes here telling myself exactly that, get off your butt and go do this. So I definitely think it was very helpful and it's very good. We want to jump into a little Q&A, but first, before we get into that, I just want to remind everybody, even during this, I have some questions in here, but if you have questions in the webinar question box, throw them in there. We'll pick through and we'll get your questions. And we're also using the hashtag SEJ ThinkTank on Twitter, so you can continue to ask questions there. Even after the webinar ends, we'll continue to answer questions for a while, and we'll gather them all up and put them into the recap posts. So please, if you have questions, you don't even have to leave your name. Just make sure you get your questions in there so that we can get you an answer. So jumping in, I've got a handful of questions here. The first one's a very interesting one, and it's I'm going to read it. It's worded very interesting, but and then I might summarize if we don't quite get it. So this is from Karen Norton, and every time, hold on, I've got to scroll real quick because it's jumping me around in some of the updates. Is there a good resource or way to find out what parameters define the reports? For example, the geo report showed locations. How do I, hold on, every time Danielle updates it, it's jumping on there. How do I find out where it's getting the country location from? Is it, getting the location set in the operating system, or is it coming from the ISP's IP? How is it getting that data, in general?
Well, there's a
Or a
huge
place to
resource.
find out?
Yeah, there's a huge resource, and I'm going to try to get the link. There's a huge resource that Google has about dimensions and metrics specifically. It's called Dimensions and Metrics Reference. I believe if you Google that, you'll find it, but let me try to find a link for you and just have it in the chat window. Yeah, here it is. And that's where you can see a whole lot of descriptions about virtually all, well, literally all the dimensions and all the metrics that are used in Google Analytics, and you can read a lot about each one.
Next question I have, this is one I hear a lot. What's the best way to block spam referral traffic? Like, you don't want to see certain spam referrals, or you don't want to see, my guess is you have to know where it's coming from to be able to block it. There's not a quote-unquote known spam.
I'm guessing you want to block it from showing in reports in Google
Yes.
Analytics. I briefly mentioned filters when we had our first question. So you would need to create a filter, and then you would need to configure that filter. It really depends on how you identify that traffic, but you can block it based on IP or many different parameters. But one thing with filters, once you block it, if you accidentally block somebody else when you do that, all that data will just not exist in your reports. So filters are permanent, unlike segments. So I would be using filters to do that. Be very careful. Yep. Or when you're creating filters, if you want to go that route, before you create a filter, create a new view that's a duplicate of your master view in Google Analytics, and then create filters on that other view. So you have your real master view, which is untouched and has the unfiltered data, and then apply filters to that duplicate view.
Is that also how you would block spider data?
Yeah, actually, there's an option for every view in Google Analytics. Just block bots and spiders, and then it will automatically block all the known bots and spiders to Google Analytics. Yep.
If you had to choose 4 segments that you would put on every website, what would you list off as your 4 segments?
Can I cop out? Can I say that it depends on the website? Because it really does. Yeah, but if I want to guess, I would look at mobile, which is what you said, but I probably wouldn't be focusing on mobile in the long run. I would look at mobile to see if my website is broken on mobile, because if it has a high bounce rate, much higher than overall, that means something's wrong with mobile. Once I fix that, I would not really, maybe I would, but it depends on what the fix is and how good it is after the fix, but it's not one of the most important segments in the long run for me. Returning visitors for a content website or a blog, I think are very, very important. And also converters. They are really people who convert on a goal. They are extremely important. And understanding converters and what they do before they convert and after they convert will help you understand why the other segment, the non-converters, are not converting, and then you will be able to work on that as well. And you said 4, so let me think. If you have a lot of posts and direct traffic, organic traffic that's coming from organic search is important, which is the case at SEJ, I would say that. I would keep an eye with all the Google updates and all the pandas and penguins and everything that they do. If there's a big change in that segment, if it drops, I would say that that's a major red flag. That's something to be concerned about.
Awesome. Interesting question. Free sessions, free segments for free users, and most people are on universal platform at this point. When should somebody consider going from universal to the paid analytics?
Oh, that's enterprise level, really, because the prices, I don't know prices off the top of my head, but if you heard the price, you would say, no, I don't need that immediately. Like that's really, it's very expensive.
From a feature perspective, is there a point when you absolutely, I mean, obviously there's going to be some point where people are like, look, this is going to be beneficial to me.
Yeah, if you really need to fine-tune everything that you're tracking, if all the limits are not enough, you will know. But I would say for more than 99.9%, they would never even have to consider enterprise or paid Google Analytics account.
I mentioned the example of tracking outbound traffic, right? Where they're going and things like that. Is there any way to track outbound traffic completely just using analytics? I mean, from my understanding, the only thing you can track is how someone leaves. You can't track where they go.
Oh, you can, actually. A plugin that I mentioned earlier, Google Analytics by Yoast, which is one of the most popular Google Analytics plugins for WordPress. By default, it tracks outbound article clicks. So what that means is it tracks outbound links in your articles. So you can actually see where people go and where they leave. You can list top posts where that event or outbound article happens, so you will know what to do. If you have let me just give you an example. If you have a post and in that post 50% of people click the same outbound article link that you have to another website that describes something that you haven't described in your own website, maybe it's time to write another blog post that describes that and then link to your own post, because you would not be losing all that traffic.
Let's say you have a sign-up form and it doesn't go to another page. It doesn't have a page for you to put a conversion goal cookie on, script on. Can you solve that by using the event goals? Or,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because if it's an Ajax form that just submits and without refreshing the page, you can use JavaScript to track that event. You need help from a developer to set up that event in the first place, but then setting up a goal based on the event is something you can do in Google Analytics interface easily.
Awesome. Let me read through. This is an interesting question. It might stump you. This is fun. How do you properly track traffic between subdomains? I see traffic from my main domain to my subdomain as referrals and cannot track keywords.
There's several ways to do that. One would be to have different accounts for subdomains, and it's really when you're setting up that domain. I would need to get too technical to explain this, so maybe it would be best to ask the question on the SEJ ThinkTank hashtag, and then we can discuss that on Twitter later after the webinar is over. But
okay, that was an individual named Vladimir. So when he hits you on Twitter, we'll address that.
Yep.
I see hundreds of visits on my site. It shows direct traffic, but then I see 99% of the traffic is bounced. What could be the reason for that?
Ooh, many reasons, actually, but direct
What is
traffic,
defined by bounced? What does that mean? We should probably define that real quick.
Yeah, a bounce is when a user lands on your website, does nothing, and leaves. So that's really when you go to a bar and you think, this bar is, let's say, not good, and you bounce. That's basically what it is, without even ordering a drink.
So they don't click a link, they don't
Nothing.
scroll, even scrolling?
No, scrolling, unless you track it as an event, is different, but they don't interact with it. Yeah.
Okay.
So there could be many reasons. I would check where that traffic is coming from. You can go to location report, and we had that thing with at SEJ in December, I think. We had an unusual amount of traffic from Boardman, Oregon, and it bothered me really. I wanted to figure out what it was. Then I found out that Amazon has some new data centers there. So maybe it's a bot, because bots are always direct. They're never a referral. They don't come from Google. They don't come from social. They're direct all the time. And bots, what's typical for bot traffic is that they bounce. They do nothing. They just hit a page and leave. So I would check if all of that traffic or most of that traffic is coming from one or few locations, and maybe that would let you know what's going on behind the scenes. But without looking at a report or a few reports, it's really impossible to tell. There could be multiple reasons that contribute to that.
Awesome, awesome. So another question. I know the answer, but I'll let you jump in on this one. I have a company created, not personally created website. Can I use Google Analytics on it? I think we should transfer that into a question of, there's a website that I have that I don't have code access to. It's on a third-party site. It's a blogger site. It's a company website, whatever. I can't, get in and manipulate the site. Can I still use Google Analytics with it?
Oh, there's two ways. Either you can ask them to add the code, and maybe they do, or you can ask them to add you as a user in their Google Analytics account if they have one already. But you cannot, for any site on the internet, you cannot just.
So in order to use Google Analytics, Google Analytics will provide you a script, a JavaScript code.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to put that JavaScript code either in the header or in the footer. I believe they want you to do it in the footer now, or is it still in the header?
I think it's in the header. Yep.
So anyway, you have to be able to have access to be able to drop that JavaScript code in the header, and that's not something you can do as writing a blog post. It's not something that you can do unless you have access to that code.
You need to have access to the code, exactly, or somebody that added that code and is an admin to the Google Analytics account that they use for that website needs to add you as a user with either read-only or edit access or whatever in Google Analytics. But no, you cannot just pick your competitor's website and see their data. Unfortunately, no.
So you have multiple websites. Let's say you have 3 different websites, and you want to be able to track conversions coming from one site to the second site. How would you go about doing that?
I would set up goals, because that's the one thing you need to do to be able to track conversions. And then I would look at referral traffic where referral domain is the first site that you have. And I would check how that traffic or how that segment of my traffic converts. So it's actually very simple. If you use either a segment or you use referral report, where you filter by domain, and then you look at conversions for just that segment of your traffic or that subset.
Another thing to consider, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm definitely not an expert in this area, but I think another thing you can do is the conversion happens whenever you land on whatever page you have that cookie on, right? So if you were to, could you take site 1 and actually put the conversion cookie on site 2 on a unique page that's only linked to from site 1?
Now, the goals in Google Analytics are different. They don't work with a conversion cookie or anything. As I was talking about, something needs to be happen. A user needs to do something on your website or go somewhere on your website for that to be counted as a conversion. So it's slightly different.
Okay. So then you would need to set it up and track.
You need to set up a goal. In order to be able to track goal conversion in Google Analytics, there's no conversion cookie or any code that you put on a page. You need to set up that goal in Google Analytics. It needs to exist.
So you would be checking site 2. If you were trying to check, did site 1 come to site 2, you'd have to set up the goal on site 2.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you would just be looking through the conversion or the segment or whatever. You'd be going through that to say, what was the referral? And if the referral was site 1, then you would know that was
correct.
The conversion.
Correct.
Okay.
That is the most simple way, and that's how I would approach it, because I know that would work. Yep.
For e-commerce sites, do I really need to use goals or e-commerce tracking? Somewhere I read goals works only fine for information websites and not for e-commerce websites.
E-commerce tracking is a completely different set of goals, basically. So yes, if you have an e-commerce website, it is better to use e-commerce tracking, absolutely. You can use goals for something else. You can use goals for newsletter subscriptions still, or you can use goals for any of the things that we discussed. But yeah, e-commerce tracking is a must.
And to clarify, because I'm not aware of this and so others might not either, is there a e-commerce tracking in Google Analytics?
Absolutely. If you have e-commerce, if you want to use e-commerce, the tracking code that you add is slightly different, and then your e-commerce platform needs to send some additional data. So, for example, let's just use WordPress because that's really my home. Let's use WordPress, and if you use WooCommerce, which is the most popular e-commerce platform on WordPress, plugin on WordPress, they have Google Analytics for WooCommerce, I believe it's called, and if you just need to install that, and it will track your e-commerce transactions.
Perfect. I think we're going to get one more question. What about using a site like similarweb.com when you don't have access to Google Analytics? My answer is probably going to be I don't think there's any way of tracking without being able to add a cookie or a script of some sort. So if you can't run Google Analytics, you're going to be either that hosting the website, that company has to provide you something, either the ability to add the code or their own internal tracking. But you can't, because of the way the technology works, there has to be something there in order to see that something's come in, right?
To be honest, I've never used SimilarWeb, so I cannot say what it can or cannot do, but I doubt it can give you as much information. I'm looking at their website here, and it can give you, like when you're walking next to a house and you're looking through the window, you know something, you know that there's a light in the room, you know that there's a few people in, but you don't know what's going on inside. And I believe SimilarWeb, compared to Google Analytics or any other analytics platform that you have access to and that you control on your website, I think there's a good analogy there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time, Slobodan, in answering these questions. And as we mentioned, any additional questions that you have through Twitter, because once the webinar closes, it kind of ends that process. So definitely, if you have more questions or something comes up a couple minutes later that you forgot about, SEJ ThinkTank hashtag. SEJ ThinkTank on Twitter. We'll continue to answer your questions. I do want to let you know something kind of awesome. Our next webinar is going to be on April 2nd at 1 p.m. and it's going to have the one and only Neil Patel. It's going to be moderated by Lauren Baker, which makes it doubly fun because it's Lauren and it's Neil Patel, and yeah. So they're going to be talking about conversation rate optimization, which is something that literally everybody should be jumping on. Having Neil Patel and Lauren Baker talk about conversation rate optimization is like gold, and it's going to happen April 2nd at 1 p.m. The registration link is in the chat right now. I'm sure we'll get it out. No, actually, we're not going to get it out on social. It's first come, first serve, and we're giving you guys the first access. So only through the webinar right now with the link so that you guys can get it to all. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, Slobodan, for letting me interrupt you constantly. And we look forward to seeing you all.
I appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for tuning into our webinar.